Good evening everyone and welcome to our meeting on the 16th of September. I'd like to open the meeting at 7 p.m. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians. Our meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri Wurrung people, and on behalf of Banyule City Council I wish to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians and wish to pass on my respects to any Aboriginal elders past and present and emerging who may be joining us this evening. And our diversity statement. Our community is made up of diverse cultures, beliefs, abilities, bodies, sexualities, ages and genders. We are committed to access, equity, participation and the rights of everyone. Principles that empower, foster harmony and increase the well-being of an inclusive community. I'd also like to acknowledge previous Councillor Michelle Penson, the Mayor of the City of Heidelberg. It's lovely to have you in the gallery, Michelle. Thanks for coming. I'd now like to pass on to our Chief Executive Officer, Alison Beckwith, who will read out the formalities.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome all to this ordinary meeting of Council. As the Mayor indicated, my name is Alison Beckwith and I'm the Chief Executive Officer here at Banyule. Tonight's meeting is being held in person in accordance with the provision of Council's governance rules and the Local Government Act 2020. The meeting is also being live streamed via Council's website and Facebook pages. The live stream is not interactive, so any comments or private messages directed to us while the stream is live will not be presented to the Council or have any bearing on the conduct of tonight's meeting. Council's request to speak methods continue to allow participation of our residents without having to attend the meetings in person. I'll just take you through some rules of public participation tonight. Public question time will occur at the conclusion of the meeting. If a member of the public who submitted their question is present, they are welcome to read their question as submitted or have their question read out on their behalf by a member of staff. If you are indeed not present at the time, the question will not be read out. All public questions, though, and responses will be included in the meeting minutes following tonight's meeting. No statement may be derogatory, defamatory or directed to an individual councillor, member of staff, ratepayer or member of the public. A 2-minute time limit does apply to all request to speaks. The timer will be used and a warning will sound at the 1.5 minute mark, and we ask that you sum up for the last 30 seconds. And if required, the statement reading out on your behalf will also be summed up. We ask that members of the gallery please check their phones and ensure that it is either switched off or on silent mode to avoid disruptions to tonight's meeting. I also remind everyone that Council has a zero tolerance for any form of bullying, harassment or violence. Everyone present in the gallery, community, members of Council staff and councillors are expected to respect the individual views of all others, irrespective of their own views held, and respectfully being able to participate in the Council meeting. If any members of the gallery depart the chambers while the meeting is still in progress, we ask you kindly to not hold discussions and conversations with others until you're outside the building. Noise from both the foyer area and downstairs reverberate up into this chamber while the live stream is indeed occurring, and so we thank you because it affects those listening at home. I'll now introduce you to the councillors in attendance to tonight's meeting, and I'll start to my left. I have Peter Castaldo, Councillor Peter De Morales and Councillor Alison Champion, and to my right, the Mayor, Councillor Tom Melican, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Rick Garotti, Councillor Alida McKern, Councillor Elizabeth Neely and Councillor Mark Di Pasquale. This evening we are also joined by Council's executive team, and over to my left we have Joseph Tobacco, Director of Community Wellbeing, Natasha Swan, Director of City Development, and to my right Mark Giglio, Director of Corporate Services, and Darren Bennett, Director of Assets and City Services. Also joining us tonight are members from the governance team and our IT team, ensuring that tonight's meeting runs well. So we thank you, those in the gallery and those at home, in participating in tonight's meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. There is no apologies tonight. The first item is the confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 26th of August. Can I have a councillor please move a motion? Moved Councillor De Morales, seconded Councillor Champion. Comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. Disclosure of interest as required at any other council meeting. Councillors must declare a conflict at the start of the meeting and leave the meeting when the item is presented to councillors. Councillors will be required to leave the meeting and return when the item has been resolved. At any point throughout the meeting, if any councillor recognises they have a general or material interest, they can flag at that point and follow the same procedures. There are no disclosures of interest tonight. Disclosure of interest from the staff. Obviously, whether they're present, can I ask you whether you have any conflicts of interest with any of the items presented tonight? There are none. Petitions. There is one petition tonight. There are 3 speakers. The petition is requesting action for the Banyule City Council to install a pedestrian crossing at Looker Road, Montmorency. The first speaker is Lauren Sanders. Welcome, Lawrence. Nice to see you again. Hope you got your name right for a change.
You've got a double action with a sibling here with the same surname, so practice makes perfect. Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for taking the time to consider this much-needed pedestrian crossing on Looker Road in Monty. Looker Road divides the east and west of Montmorency. It's predominantly a residential street with Manx Cafe and the Montmorency Service Centre on the southern end. Looker Road also forms part of the 293 bus route from Box Hill, with a couple of those bus stops in the southern end in front of the Manx Cafe. Okay, a pedestrian crossing would be best placed between Apex Road and Buena Vista Drive. This section of road sees 2 blind turns that obstructs pedestrians' ability to safely cross the road and view oncoming traffic. This section of Looker Road often has cars parked on both sides, forcing you out onto the road to actually look past the cars and safely cross the street. Cars exiting Main Road Lower Plenty, which is the 70k road, onto Looker Road, also around a quite tight bend, poses a significant risk to pedestrians. This position has come about from extensive community feedback and multiple messages to my social media account, though I also have personal experience of trying to push a pram and wrangle a couple of cousins, a couple of kids on the way to school pickup at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Monty South Primary in Grand Boulevard has over 600 kids enrolled, and the catchment zone includes the western side of Looker Road. So for kids to safely access from the west to either ride their bikes or walk to school, they have to cross Looker Road. It's the only way to get there. Panorama Heights Kinder is also next door, servicing kids from all over Banyule. One local trader told me, who's down at the Monty service station, that it's an accident waiting to happen, was his quote, and he watches elderly residents get off the bus stop and then try to leg it across the road to safely cross. I will sum up, thank you. A pedestrian crossing would provide a nice, safe and central location for kids in that peak hour of traffic going to kinder and going to school, and also provide a safe spot for elderly and disabled residents getting off the bus to actually safely cross the road to the other side of the street. I hope a sensible decision can be made and that southern part of Looker Road can receive a pedestrian crossing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our second speaker, Ashley Sanders. Welcome, Ashley. No pressure.
Don't follow her. Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for allowing me to speak this evening. I wish to address the issue involving the dangers on Looker Road in crossing the road. I am a local resident in Montmorency and live just down the road from Looker Road, and I've been there for over 10 years now. I have 2 young children who attend the local primary school and kindergarten on Grand Boulevard, and we walk this road every day to get to and from school. So busy peak hour times before school starts and after school starts makes it really tricky to be able to cross safely. My children are now getting a little bit older and wanting to ride their bikes and scooters to school. Being able to walk across the street with 2 scooters, 2 children holding hands is just really difficult to navigate. I often also walk my neighbours' children home as well, so having 4 backpacks, 4 children crossing the road makes it really tricky. I've also got grandparents who walk my children to and from school once a week, and with their ageing and their mobility not as it used to be, I do fear that they will be unable to safely cross the road. The traffic along the road, along with parked cars, reducing the visibility, being able to cross, makes it incredibly difficult, and I myself have even had quite a few near misses with both of my children. I again thank you for your time and hope that Council can come up with a solution to keep all members of the community safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Very well spoken. Our third speaker is Michelle Jarvis. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. You usually introduce me as the Citizen of the Year, but you've neglected to do that. But
It says on my notes that you're speaking on behalf of yourself.
yes, I am.
So,
But I also want to thank Council for their support during the year and councillors. I support the residents' call for action and for a pedestrian crossing at Looker Road between Bonavista Drive and Apex Way. I ask that Council seek approval from the Department of Transport and Planning for this to occur. I am also asking that Council consult fully with residents on the type of crossing that could be installed: a school crossing, a zebra crossing with or without lights, or pedestrian operated signals. Council officers should also consider the topography of the area, that it's on a hill, the bends before and after the stretch of road. There's a bend at Apex Way and a bend at Bonavista, and the current speed limit and the speeds that cars are actually doing. This is in addition to looking at the number of vehicles travelling along Looker Road and the number of people crossing. Clearly, more recent dates for traffic and pedestrian counts need to occur, as testing in April 2023 might have been done when school holidays were on. The low numbers in the agenda item seem to indicate that, because the numbers in 2023 are lower than the numbers in 2018. Residents have brought this petition forward because of safety considerations, and Council needs to be mindful of that. Thank you.
thank you, Michelle. There is an officer's report on the agenda paper. I'm looking for someone to call, move a motion. Councillor Champion, seconded Councillor McKern. Comment?
Oh, just briefly, Mayor, thank you for that. Yeah, I too would actually like to see the numbers. I think Michelle made a really good point. They're quite different with that 5-year difference. So I'd love to see that report come through at some point. But I'd certainly support this petition. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you for the comment. Councillor McKern.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you to the speakers and also the petitioners for putting forward this petition for our consideration. Safety is obviously something that this council takes very seriously, and given that there have been previous requests and previous pedestrian counts, I actually have a couple of questions for the responsible director through you, Mayor. The first being, what are the warrant requirements for a crossing to be considered an application made to the Department of Transport and Planning? So what are the warrant requirements that need to be met? And two, I notice in the recommendation that there's no recommendation for a report to come back to council. Why that is? Thank you, Mayor.
Natasha, could you please respond to that question?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. I don't know what the warrant count requirements are for the Department of Transport to meet the tests, and I think it does depend on the nature of the crossing that's being installed, so it's a varied number. I do know that much, but I couldn't tell you what the exact figures are, so I would have to take that question on notice.
I believe it was in the report, wasn't it, for each particular crossing type?
It does vary depending on the type of crossing. Yeah, so it varies depending on each of them. So I believe the report contains the figures for each of the different types, so I couldn't speak to it.
Oh, our CEO has the figures there from
Yeah.
the report. Could you read them out, please, Alison?
So it depends on the type of crossing, but there are different. So installation is warranted for a school crossing when pedestrian volumes exceed 20 primary school children per hour and vehicle volumes surpass 100 vehicles per hour. For a zebra crossing, installation of zebra crossings is warranted when pedestrian volumes exceed 20 pedestrians per hour and vehicles volumes surpass 200 vehicles per hour. And there's also road speeds that differentiate in these. Zebra crossing with flashing lights is warranted when pedestrian volumes exceed 60 pedestrians per hour and vehicle volumes surpass 500 vehicles per hour, and the road is more than 50 to 60 k's. And pedestrian operated singles is when pedestrian volumes exceed 100 per hour and vehicles volumes surpass 500 per hour. So they're listed on page 7 of our agenda if anyone needs to have reference to those. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Did you want to continue your comments?
I'd also, to you, Mayor, just like a response to the question regarding a report coming back to council, because it strikes me just having listened to the figures that we're not far off the possibility of a crossing being considered.
The second recommendation does call for a consideration and response. It doesn't specify who that response will come to. Will that come to a council meeting?
Through you, Mayor. So the process for establishing the counts and the warrants and application would normally be done by officers under their delegation, and then the consideration for whether council wishes to invest in the installation of a crossing and the personnel required to that would come back to council, either as part of our annual budget and capital works process or as a separate report.
Thank you.
So then can we take that as a given through you, Mayor, that a report could come back to council without actually having to pass a motion stating such?
Is that correct? The report will come back to council, or do we need to specify that in the recommendations?
Through you, Mayor, should it meet the warrants and a process be enacted and supported by the Department of Transport, then a report would come back in due course. If it doesn't meet the warrants, then we would provide a response to the petitioner advising as such.
Okay, thank you. Further comments, Councillor McKern? Councillor Neely?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just looking forward to what comes back from the Traffic and Transport Department. We want to, as a council, improve the walkability of the area, and some crossings really are important and do that. So we've had a number of crossings being installed in the municipality. You know, there's a really important one on St Helena Road that's coming. The traffic, it's really, really dangerous. So looking forward to hearing what the results will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We move on to item 3.1, the awarding of the contract for the curbside collection for hard rubbish waste and mattresses. There are no speakers. I believe there's a small amendment to this recommendation. Move, Councillor Castaldo. Could you specify your alternative? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. With an amendment to Part 3, right to Federal Minister for Environment, the Honourable Tanya Plibersek MP, seeking that it be compulsory for all mattress manufacturers, importers and retailers to participate in the Australian bedding stewardship scheme. So moved.
Move, Councillor Castaldo. Is there a second? Seconded, Councillor Garotti. Comment?
Yeah, Mayor, I had a question actually.
Question? Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah, just a question of the appropriate officer, and this is just based on the information in the public report, but Community Resources Limited, trading as Soft Landing, received a score of 85.23, and the tenderer D received a score of 87.73. I just think it would be appropriate to receive feedback from officers on why that tender D was not awarded, was not being recommended to receive the contract.
Thanks for the question, and through you, Mayor. When we looked at the weighting scores, you're correct, that tender D did have the higher score. However, when we considered non-financial scoring, community resources certainly came up with the higher score, and the reason for that is outlined in the report. But community resources are a social enterprise. They create employment opportunities for 261 people. 74% of those are people who face barriers to employment. The other part of community resourcing is around their superior recycling methods to achieve a higher diversion rate from landfill than the other traders that were presented. So on balance, we think that given the closeness of the weighting scores and the environmental and social outcomes that preferred tenderer presents, we think it is a good, sound proposal, and we're recommending that community resources are successful with that tender because they're superior submission for non-priced criteria.
Thank you. Any further questions? Were you going to second this recommendation? Happy to second. Councillor Costello, did you have comments?
Yeah, I've got one further question for the relevant director in regards to product stewardship. What is the lay of the land for Australia at this point in time? For mattresses.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the question, and through you, Mayor. The Australian Bedding Stewardship Council does have a scheme that is... so there is a scheme established, however, it's not a compulsory scheme, it's an opt-in scheme. Interestingly, that ABSC, the Australian Stewardship Council, does recognise that a whole-of-industry approach is needed to move the bedding industry towards a circular economy and provide a national recycling solutions.
Did you have comment, Councillor Costello?
No further questions. Yeah, look, you might wonder why I'm raising that here today, but if you've read the report, you'll see that it's a $1 million cost to our residents every 2 years to take away mattresses. We want to make sure that we're delivering an efficient collection of services and important things to our community, and if we could be spending $1 million delivering other important things, I think that would be a great benefit to our community. So, in speaking with the officers today, there was a range of improvements that could be made to the product stewardship program to improve at cost of sale, the cost of removal, rather than put that onto councils. And so tonight we're going to write to the Minister responsible for the product stewardship program to consider that, because right now we can't it's a bad situation where local providers of mattresses have to take it on the disposal costs without being the international providers paying anything. So I think we want a level playing field for Australian manufacturers. We want to make sure that council can deliver as many good services as possible and have the right incentives in place to make sure that we have an efficient and well-operating waste services. And so when we see $3 million cost to council just to provide this service, I think it's really important. We always look to ways to improve this. And so I'm very supportive of the efficient services that we're going to contract on. I've been told it's going to be from our officers, and I think but there's a long way to go for waste reduction and improvements in the system.
Further comment? Councillor Grawley.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm comfortable with the overall officer recommendation and including that addition from Councillor Castaldo. In terms of the whole package of information that's available to councillors, including a confidential attachment, I'm confident on both services that it is a good value for money outcome for council, as well as meeting our other objectives, particularly in the case of one service on social procurement. So I just think it's important to make those comments and to clarify that it is a good value for money outcome for council. And very pleased to see that with procurement, we're able to drive some of those initiatives that are so important to us as a council, including around inclusive jobs, where we can do so without imposing an additional burden on the ratepayer. So a very good outcome here. I would probably just make the suggestion to officers that in terms of how these reports are presented in the future to a future council, that those considerations ideally would be reflected in the scoring. So that might just be some feedback as a departing councillor who has a little bit of experience in this field for the next council to take on board. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? Yeah, I'll support this tonight as well. I know I shouldn't speak, but I actually did a tour of the mattress recycling centre in Footscray, and it was incredibly educational when you learn the different ways that mattresses are made and how incredibly complex it is to recycle a mattress, and how the various manufacturers have all their different techniques to try and get at a competitive edge in the market. And some of the really expensive mattresses are difficult to pull apart, they contain so many different sorts of material, and as part of the stewardship program you'd think that you'd force manufacturers to pay the cost of whatever it takes to recycle their materials or their products, to give them an incentive to make it easier to recycle. It would not change the look, the brand, the feel, but there's no incentive for manufacturers to make mattresses that are easy to recycle, and that's what I think part of the stewardship program would bring. So I'll support this tonight. So I'll put that, all those in favour? That is carried. Is that the Queen Mary coming out? We'll move on to item 3.2. There are no speakers. The Cemetery Trust operational report. There is a motion in the paper. I look for a mover. Moved Councillor Garotti, seconded Councillor Neely. Comment?
On the next item regarding trusts for me. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor, there are any other councillors like to comment? I'll put that, all those in favour. That is carried. We'll move on to item 3.3, the Cemetery Trust financial statements. There are no speakers. I look for a councillor to move. Moved Councillor Garotti, seconded Councillor Neely. Comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a comment to note that the Trust has delivered a surplus again of 13,364. So I think, from memory now, the Trust has delivered a surplus in every year that I can recall, and yet every year we've been worried that it was going to deliver a massive deficit. So that's good, very positive, and particularly because the Trust consolidates into council, it has a very healthy cash balance, over $1 million. So that means that it certainly gives me an indication that the Cemeteries Trust is going to be sustainable well into the future and won't be imposing a burden on the general rates from this council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? I'll put that, all those in favour. That is carried. We'll move on to item 3.4, Cemetery Trust abstract of accounts. There are no speakers. Look for a council to move a motion. Moved Councillor Neely, seconded Councillor Garotti. Comment?
I had a quick question, Mayor.
Yes,
Does the abstract of accounts need to be signed off by one or two trust members, and do we need to include that in the recommendation, or is this adequate as is through the appropriate officers?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mayor. My understanding is the resolution is enough, but I think given the question, if there's some uncertainty, perhaps an additional resolution could be included just to have perhaps the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor sign off prior to submitting to the Department of Health. I'm quite certain it's not necessary, but just to cover that basis, it might be an important amendment. Good pick up, thank you.
Thank you. Would the mover be happy with that amendment? Thank you. And the seconder, can we have that? Do we need to type in before? I think we should have it on the board before we actually vote on it, if that's possible. Sorry about the delay.
I'll just read that out for you. So we've just made an amendment to dot point 2 to be signed by the Mayor of the Day and Deputy Mayor of the Day prior to being submitted to the Department of Health.
Thank you. Are people happy to respond to vote for that third recommendation? I'll put that then. All those in favour? That is carried. We move on to item 3.5, legal services options to reduce spend. There are two speakers. First speaker, Melissa Murphy-Webster. Melissa, I did see you. There you are. Welcome. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening, all. I'm just speaking to say that I am for this item, given that we need more stringency with the council budget in the cost of living crisis. And it was great that Councillor Garotti brought the expenditure to light during the budget review. The recommendations are great to start pulling back on their spending, although it does seem unusual that a database doesn't already exist. And I see that all requests to obtain legal advice are now required to be approved by a managing or director, which I find it very strange that it wasn't already in place. I do have a question. So has there been an audit on the amount of duplications of advice being sought by same or different departments or instigated by staff who have no authority? And I just wanted to say that I'm not a big fan of benchmarking to suggest that Banyule isn't as bad as other councils. We really need to stand on our own and not compare. Just because Banyule's not as crap as the other councils doesn't mean that we're doing a good job. I am intrigued by the option of the subscription. I think it's something that I've never seen before, and having a quick review without going deep into it, it looks like it could be something that's workable, and obviously that there's tiers and levels involved in that could benefit the council. And I'm looking forward to the full report once all the suggestions are made. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Melissa, sorry. I got the name right, but the wrong person. Sorry about that. Our second speaker is Kavan Hill. Welcome, Kavan.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a lot to say, simply echoing what Melissa said. This is a well-reasoned and intellectually solid recommendation and report, and I congratulate the council for thinking this through pretty carefully. Again, I'd like to recognise the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Garotti, for taking the initiative and asking the question, and I think you guys are on the right direction researching this, and I congratulate the council staff for putting this report together. Thank you.
You can come again. Thank you very much. I'll look for a councillor to move a motion. Moved Councillor McKern, seconded Councillor Garotti. Comment?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to our speakers. I'm inclined particularly to agree with the second speaker. Thank you, Mr Hill. I too believe it's a solid report, and I too thank the Deputy Mayor for raising it. Banyule Council spent more than $600,000 on legal costs by external legal suppliers in the past financial year. And while I appreciate that there are a number of Victorian councils where legal fees extend into the millions, I think it is prudent to keep an eye on external consultant costs, and for that matter, not just legal consultants. And this is what this report seeks to do. I can understand how specialist and or complex matters may require external legal support by lawyers who are expert in their field, particularly if in-house counsel is not available. Studying the legal cost attachment for the last financial year, Council used external legal advice on a range of matters: WorkSafe, tree incidents, dog attacks, prosecution cases, parking enforcement, to name a few. This is not unusual in local government. While Council does have governance officers on the payroll who can advise on Council's corporate governance framework, we don't have in-house counsel. Some councils do. And I've had the benefit of working for one of those councils. Having had an in-house lawyer, I can tell you I found that service to be particularly useful for providing general support to staff and helping to clarify sections and clauses of acts that can be complex to understand by both staff and councillors. Yet we are legally required to abide by the various acts that we work to. So understanding these acts is incredibly important. So I will be supporting this motion tonight. I think a considerable amount of research has been undertaken by our staff since the resolution. The recommended options for implementation in the next 12 months should result, I'm hoping, in legal cost savings without being a cost burden to Council, and I believe it to be worthwhile to explore the possibility of internal legal counsel. Thank you, Mayor.
Further comment? Councillor Grotty.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll just make a few comments. So it's a really good piece of work that's come back from officers, and we're very grateful for it. And I suppose it's incurred in a context over the last couple of years just of bits of work that we've done as a council with officers around looking for value for money savings for the council. We've introduced a best and final offer process through all our procurements, and I don't know the figures offhand, but that has delivered substantial savings to this council. Just a couple of meetings ago, when we had a report come back on agency and contractors, for the first time ever we capped it as a council, and we've set in place a process now to make sure that that's tightly controlled and monitored, that area of spend, and that'll deliver savings. Consultants was on our hit list, so to speak, in terms of finding savings. This council gets a briefing now every year from the Chief Executive, and we look at that, and we've seen substantial savings in consultants. And legal was an area that came up about 6 months ago onto our radar, and again now we have this report coming back around options to bring down expenditure. And what's pleasing too is that these options are not just about looking to reduce costs to council, which is very important, but it's also about developing capability, because one of them is about in-housing legal services. With consultants, we've had a really big push to say, why do we pay other people, other consultants to do the work that we want our officers, our Banyule officers to do? And it's the same with legal. So I'm very proud that we're not only able to find savings for the ratepayer, but build internal capability in Banyule and build internal capability in the sector. So a very good report that I'm very supportive of. And I would just like to make a call out to Hans within Mark's team. He is a very talented procurement officer, and if he is listening in, I'm very grateful for the work that he's done across a range of areas in this space, him and his team. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to council meeting dates 2025. There are no speakers. There is a report there. I look for a council to move. Move, Councillor Champion. Seconded, Councillor Costello. Comment? No comment. I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. Record of council meetings. There are no speakers. There is a recommendation in the report to look for a council to move. Move Councillor Champion, seconded Councillor Costello. Comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We move on to item 3.8, acknowledgement of the current term for the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor. There are two speakers. Melissa Murphy-Webster. Welcome back, Melissa.
Okay, brace yourself. I'm going to be nice. My experience over the last year with the current mayoral team has been the best one that I've experienced in the last few years. I've known Rick for quite some time. He's been my ward councillor for 12 years. Going back to when with my dog, missing ducks in the park, situations with my business, and he's always been available and always been helpful. This year, I've been lucky enough to have time with Mayor Melican. He put aside time to help me and go through the process of the election and what's to expect, and dedicated quite an amount of time to it. And I could tell from the way he was speaking to me that he was so passionate and proud of being a councillor in Banyule. And it's very hard not to feel that energy coming off him. Even though I am a bit cheeky and I'm now running myself, he's still made time for me to speak to him without any hesitation. It was always open, has always been open, and very kind and considerate with the information that he's provided, and forthcoming with everything. And also very funny. I enjoyed chatting with him. So thank you both for such a wonderful year, and it's been such a great team.
It's called democracy and we should be proud of it. So, yeah, thank you, Michelle. Our second speaker. Oh. Yeah, sorry, Melissa. I'm getting mixed up. So, Kavan, pressure's on you to be nice.
Thank you, Mayor. It's going to be very difficult to be as kind as Melissa, but I'll try. It's with mixed feelings I stand here tonight to compliment the mayoral team, and I say to both of you, job well done. I've been particularly interested to, over the period of the last 4 years, watch the change in the culture of the councillor group and the impact that that's had on the interaction between the councillor group and the council staff. And I think that's been a very productive outcome, and I'd also like to thank the CEO for being part of that reform. And I just hope that with the mayoral election, with the council elections coming up, we continue to get high calibre candidates elected to council so that we can become an even better council. Whatever you decide to do, Mayor, in the future at this next election, I wish you well. And as they say in the vernacular, on your bike, Tom. So thank you to both of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Kavan. That's very nice of you. Are there any questions? There is a slight amendment, I believe. Councillor Neely, you moving a slight amendment?
I'm happy to do that. So motion 1 and 2 as is, adding an additional 3, acknowledge and thank and congratulate both Councillor Melican and Councillor Di Morellos, the outgoing 220 to 224 councillors who have declared that they are not nominating as a candidate in the 2024 Banyule elections. So moved.
Moved Councillor Neely, seconded Councillor Champion. Comment?
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't come up with that, number 3, just by the way. I'm just going to give you a bit of a history on Tom. Tom spent 40 years in the financial sector before becoming a councillor. He's been a councillor... and now he does not wear glasses. He has been a councillor for Ibbott Ward since 2001 and served as mayor 2008, 2009, 2011, 2012, 2016, 17, and this current year, 2023 to 24. His work focuses on sustainable transport, cycling, and supporting local sports and physical activities. During time at Banyule, Tom has held positions on the following committees. He's been on the CEO Employment Matters Committee, Banyule Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee, the Inclusive Advisory Committee, Age Friendly Committee, Disability Inclusion Committee, and Audit and Risk Committee. He's also, I'm sorry, I'm not in time with the slides. He's also been Council's representative on the following external committee over the 21 years. The Melbourne Metropolitan Transport Forum, the Northern Alliance for Greenhouse Action, the Northern Council Alliance, the Municipal Association of Victoria. They still think he's the representative on that, but it's actually me. The Yarra Plenty Regional Library Committee and the Metropolitan Waste and Resource Recovery Group. So that's just a lot of involvement over 21 years. He's been such a strong advocate for better transport, access and shared path infrastructure, ensuring there's safe and continued access for bike riders in Banyule. He's always going on about it, and everyone who knows him knows that. He's been a long-term advocate for the protection of local open spaces and the building of legacy community infrastructure like Watermark, Ivanhoe Library, Belfield Community Hub, Belfield Affordable Housing in partnership with Launch Housing. He's well respected not only in Banyule but across the local government sector and has had a mentoring and coaching role to many councillors at other municipalities. Wherever you go, everybody knows Tom. His dedication to his community is evident, as been mentioned by both of the speakers. I agree with them. And his long-standing service and his focus on creating a supportive, inclusive environment is at the forefront. He really does work tirelessly to ensure good decisions are made. He does his due diligence, he double checks facts, he calls residents, he walks through sites, he rides his bike through the area. He's taken us on bike tours around the municipality, attending community consultations. Tom's always there. And I learnt very quickly that the Tom approach is a positive approach, non-judgmental, open to new ideas and adapts really well to change. And as we know, not everybody does. And when you're in a position of leadership, you need to continually upskill, be prepared, engaged, and be across issues that the community faces. So making tough decisions are not always popular, and Tom's always focused on, I'm going to say it, the net community benefit. That's a real officer term, but I thought I'd throw it in there. Lastly, I just want to say that leadership also demands the ability to compromise, and Tom has stood by decisions that he didn't always agree with, but he did it for the community, and he's been very committed to Banyule, and he'd be on Banyule Council for another 20 years if the community allowed it and if his family allowed it as well. So I'll let others speak to Tom. I'll quickly thank the Deputy Mayor as well. Thank you for your work. We appreciate your organisational skills, being on top of emails, being across community issues, your financial expertise, your solid understanding of the workings of government. And like the Mayor, you have a very strong work ethic and understanding of the diverse perspectives of the community, probably better than most. I'd also like to mention the juggling act that, you know, Rick works full time. He's got a lovely young family, and while being, you know, managing all of that is still accessible to residents. So council can be challenging and unpredictable, and Councillor Grotti has his political acumen that's enabled him to do really well. And lastly, Councillor Di Morelos. Councillor de Morelos, you get the least time. Sorry, you're an extrovert, an extrovert who enjoys meeting with the community. And when we both first got elected, I had to battle with him to get onto some of the committees because he wanted to be on most of the ones that I wanted to be on. He always communicates with respect, even when discussing contentious or sensitive topics. There he is, swinging around. And I'm grateful for all the work he's done on all the committees that I was happy to be on with him. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Sorry to go for too long.
Thank you, Liz. Not sure if I should put it to the vote. Does anyone else want to say anything? Councillor Champion.
No, that's okay. No, you actually said a lot of things. That was great. I can just keep it brief. So are you really sure you're not running again, Mayor? Because you've got about 14 hours to make another decision. Agree, but what has impressed me about this this particular leadership is that these two people are two completely and utterly different human beings. And they've got different values, and some of their values are similar, but a lot are different. And we as a councillor group have the privilege of really hearing them and hearing what they think about items. And sometimes they're very, very different. And it's okay, because we just agree to disagree and we move on. And that's what fantastic leadership team is, because the focus is not on themselves, it's actually on the community and others and the benefit of others. So I have loved working with you both as Mayor and Deputy Mayor this last year. It has been a pleasure and a privilege, and I will miss the teamwork and the team and the connection that you both have with your community. I will miss that, and I wish you the very best. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alison. Further comment? Councillor McKern.
I'd like to echo all the comments made, not just by the speakers in the gallery, but also Councillor Neely and Councillor Champion. Mayor Councillor Tom Melican, as an experienced councillor with more than 20 years service under his belt, has worked hard to implement requirements of the role. And you only have to look at the Local Government Act to see that it's a lengthy list that's expected of the Mayor. Also a keen advocate for active transport, particularly cycling, more often than not turning up to meetings on his bicycle, living what he preaches. Thank you, Tom, for your services as Mayor, commitment to Council, and thank you for returning councillor phone calls and always showing a willingness to engage with fellow councillors, which is what keeping a team together is about. Even when, as mentioned by Councillor Champion, there is disagreement, you always rose above, the value of which should not be underestimated in a leadership position. For Deputy Mayor Councillor Rick Garotti, I've observed is an absolute natural and experienced leader. This is evidenced by his good working relationship with the Mayor, important as these positions need to work collaboratively for the benefit of the Council and the community. Consistently solid contribution to the affairs of Council, with a sharp eye for budget, audit and procurement matters, responsive to the councillor group, always making himself available to discuss agenda items leading up to council meetings. He's been terrific to work with, and I thank you, Councillor Garotti, for your services to Council as Deputy Mayor. And thank you too, Peter, or rather Councillor de Morelos. There's been probably more disagreement than agreement on most agenda items that we've tackled, but somehow we can still shake hands at the end of the day and have a laugh and a smile together, and that speaks volumes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKern. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Castaldo.
Yeah, I think a lot's been said, but look, when I was just still growing up, Tom was mayor of this council, or on council, so, and then I turn up on council and there's no one better than for him to show a new councillor the ropes, and I just got to thank him for supporting me and everyone else when they come to this council. And it's really sad to see that part 3. I didn't want to see that tonight, but you've been a tremendous assistance to all your fellow councillors. the way you work with council staff, the respect you've got right throughout this organisation, throughout the community. Every day I call him up, he's at someone's house having a cup of tea and a biscuit, or at a funeral. So his work never stops. It doesn't stop just with council business and agenda items. Look, he sets a tremendous example for all of us, and I think if there's a legacy that he can bring to this council long into the future, it's his dedication, commitment and true, genuine community spirit that he's engaged with everyone always in his role. I'd also like to congratulate the Deputy Mayor, for his contribution and the support both to the Mayor and the rest of the councillor group. You're always there supportive of us as well, and you've done an excellent job this year, and I think this year's worked just really smoothly. Both of you have got to be commended for the leadership at the top of this organisation. I'd also like to congratulate Peter for his contributions, always creating a playful nature to this council, something that's always sort of good in a tense and tight, difficult situation. And so, look, everyone brings something different to this council we've got here, and we do certainly have a diversity. And I think this last year has been as good as one could possibly hope going into an election. So congratulations to both of you.
Thank you very much. Any further comment? Councillor De Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Tom, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to commend you on a wonderful career with this council. It's been fantastic when you sit back and have a bit of a think about what you've done for this community. It's quite monumental. I remember you always saying that you came onto this council wanting to make change in the way of cycling, and it's pretty much happening. Though if you really think about it, we've got so much infrastructure going in for cyclists, etc. And Melbourne now moves into that, this next phase of infrastructure build, and this is what we've needed. We needed all these this next phase. So you have kicked it along. So well done, and you can sit back over the next 10, 15, 20 years and just be happy with what you've created. Thank you very much for working so well with myself and the other councillors too. Thank you very much for the many rides that we've had. I remember particularly riding to Canberra with the Vietnam vets. That was a highlight. I remember that forever. Around the bay every year. Thank you for being, the person in front of me, dragging me along around the bay. So really do. Thank you very much for that. You should be very proud, and you should be proud too with regard, your family should be proud as well. Okay, they should be, everything that you've done for this community. Councillor Garotti, our Deputy Mayor, thank you very much for the role you've taken this year as well. It's been fantastic to watch you grow further in the role, and also your family too. We entered this council, or got on this council at the same time, and it's been fantastic. My family was very young at that time. You had not yet started your family at that time. And to watch your family grow over that time, it's just something I'll look back on in my years ahead and just, have a smile on my face. Everything you've done for this community and council this year and also in the past is commendable. You two as a pair, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, it's fantastic because there's always good cop, bad cop going sometimes. Depending on what Councillor Champion hit the nail on the head, depending on what the issue is, one will be the good cop and one will be the bad cop. So if it has to do with finance, we have Councillor Garotti will be the good cop there and Councillor Malikan the bad cop. And then if it has to do with cycling or transport infrastructure, Councillor Malikan will be the good cop and Councillor Garotti, you'll be there the one on the opposing side. But it's really good. You do work really well as a team, so I commend you as a pair. Very quickly, Councillor de Morelos, congratulations on your term. You did go through, and we all go through a huge growth curve, I think, coming onto a council. And I do also want to commend the other councillors who did start this last term as well. Councillor McKern, and we also have Councillor Mitsinikos, who is not with us. But congratulations on your term as well, because it's a huge learning curve now. Councillor Neely, it is your first term, but you have been a councillor on another council, so you would have had some runs on the board there. But huge learning curve as well. And then also thank you to the other councillors who have been on for longer, Councillor Castaldo, Councillor Champion. Who have I missed? Myself? Yeah, okay. I'm not going to thank myself. Because the last term has been probably the most, I would say the most challenging of my terms. Just with regards to the infrastructure changes, just with regards to the way that Banyule is changing. Look, Melbourne's changed and it's continuing to change. So well done on your work. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Garotti.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just kick off by, just acknowledging Councillor De Morales moving on. And it was great to work with you, and you certainly did bring a different dimension to the council. The business background, the entrepreneurial background was very helpful, and there was probably a lot of conversation and discussion around items and insight that you brought that the community wouldn't have seen. But we definitely saw that, and we definitely benefited from that as a group. And I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for that, and thank the city for that contribution. In terms of, I didn't want to get emotional, but it's sad, to be honest, with Tom moving on. So he was instrumental in encouraging me to run 12 years ago. I think, like he's done with a lot of people, when you're in that space of weighing up whether or not you want to run for council, Tom was one who I sat down with, and he encouraged me to run. He was I've never been like this. So it was a very tight relationship. Tom did a lot of good things that behind the scenes. So I think that the other councillors have touched on all the public stuff that we saw, attending events, doing the MAV stuff, being the bicycle guy, being the person that everyone knows, the social person, all those things. But what people in the gallery may not appreciate is the tremendous amount of work he did behind the scenes. He checked in on every single one of us. He checked in regularly on the chief executive and the senior executive team. He made sure that, are you okay? Are you okay? Are things working okay? That work is enormously valuable. You can't put a price on it because it keeps the group cohesive. And also for our executive, I know for our chief executive, there were tough times, many tough times during this term of council, and there were different issues that she had to confront. And I think if there was one pillar of strength throughout the whole 4 years, it was Tom. And he was an amazing councillor before this term, but I think he elevated to a level of enormous leadership. And he was a rock for this council. And I think he leaves it in good shape. I think for those that are recontesting or those that are contesting again, we've got a big obligation, I think, to continue the good work and to build on the good work of leadership of Tom. And I just want to personally thank you for everything you've done.
I'll go before you, Tom.
Councillor De Morales.
Thanks, Mayor. First off, Mayor Malleken, a massive thank you. This year has been a great year from a side of seeing your support for the community. It's been a tough year for myself, and seeing you be there for that community and constantly checking in and having my back, I genuinely appreciate it. And I know that my community can say that you've been there and you've supported them. You've truly been a champion for us, and I really appreciate it. You've not just been a councillor, you've been a friend, a mentor, and a tireless advocate for each and every one of us. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for your leadership, your passion, and for making Banyule a better place to live. To Deputy Mayor Garotti, I'm continued to be impressed by how efficient you are. Your financial smarts and how you always keep us all in the loop. Seriously, the way that you stay on top of all your emails, your communication, continues to be something that I aspire to. Thank you for your reliability. To my fellow councillors, it's been an honour serving with you. I know we've had our disagreements, but I can say I've taken something away from each one of you during this last 4 years. So thank you. To the residents of Banyule, we've been through some good and some tough times, and some challenges balancing strategy versus short-term outcomes. But I appreciate your willingness to speak up. It's nice to see that the residents do come together when something is valuable for you, and you come together. It's been an honour working alongside you to try and make Banyule a better place to live, work and play. And to the hardworking staff, the CEO, thank you for all your support. Not just for myself, but to all of Council's work, the strategies that we do to the residents. For myself, I very much appreciate the consistent responses I get and the friendships that I've made along the way. Thank you for your commitment to making Banyule a better place to live, work and play. In conclusion, what I want to say is that these 4 years have really shown me that the thing that makes Banyule a great place is the people. It's the residents, the councillors and the officers all coming together to serve and to continue to make Banyule a great place to live. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I will say a few words, I hope. To Rick, thanks for your help and your support, your expertise, and as people have said, we are different, but our desire to do the best for everybody is what brings us together and what holds us together. So thank you for everything you do. To Peter, I remember when you came on to council, you're like a breath of fresh air. You're just so different to all of us. And I appreciate that you've really struggled the last 12 months or so with your time commitments, but you brought such a new perspective, and I really appreciate that, because your business thoughts and just the way you conduct yourself is just another brings another whole perspective to our decision-making process. So I really thank you. And I remember a few of those conferences we went to was just such fun. I know we don't go for the fun, but you made it fun. And you were so engaging and so warm to everybody. It was wonderful to say you're a Banyule councillor. And to my fellow councillors, not just the ones sitting around the table now, but for the councillors that I've was on council for a very long time with, I developed some wonderful friendships. We were companions. And I'm proud to say that every councillor I've ever served with, I still consider it to be a friend, and I haven't made any enemies whatsoever of all the people I've served with. And that's, I think there's not many councils that have been as united and together as we have for a long time. So I think the residents should be happy that we are united, we work together, and we've seen it all over Melbourne where councils fall apart, but we've been strong. We've stuck together. But there is that tension. There's always that tension in the room because we are 9 individuals, but that tension forces you to make better decisions. And it's good to have that tension. Otherwise, you don't focus, you don't take it seriously because you know everyone's just going to agree with whatever you say. So, and to my friends and the staff, and particularly our lovely CEO, some of the staff were friends of mine before I was on council, and they're still at council, and they're still my friends. And the staff have supported me, encouraged me, and I would never have managed without the staff. And I'm really going to miss that friendship and everything that goes with it. And to the residents have shown a lot of trust in me over a long period of time. They've supported me, they've encouraged me, but what I really appreciate is when they come to me and say thank you for what you've done, thank you for your efforts. It really makes it worthwhile, because it has been an honour to be a part of a great community. And to my friends, and there's a few in the room tonight, I actually went for a tour around my ward today on my bike, and I dropped in to see many people to say I was going today, and to see some of them come to the room tonight, acknowledge that is really wonderful. So thank you to my friends who have been so nice to me over a long period of time. And to my family, I've been very blessed. I had lovely parents. I've got beautiful sisters and brothers. But my wife and my family have just been so good to me forever. And I always think your family's the reason you do these things, but they are the ones that pay the cost. So you've got to get that right. And I think it's time that I spend a bit more time with my wife and my ever-expanding little bunch of grandchildren who are the delight of my life now. So thank you, everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on this council. It's been a pleasure to serve this beautiful community. I've got so much out of it, and it is. I was very sad today, riding my bike around, thinking this would be the last council meeting, and it is sad, but I'll go away with great memories. I'll go away with great friends, and I know I did my best, and we achieved a lot, so that's satisfying. And anyone talks about knowledge and experience, what great things they are, but I always think that youth and enthusiasm are just as important, and we need change constantly at council level. So as sad as I am moving on, I know that we'll get a good person to replace me who will bring new ideas, new energy, new enthusiasm, and will continue to be a great council. So thanks everybody for everything you do for me. Ta. Have we moved it?
Yes, we've moved it.
I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank goodness for that. That's carried. Oh. We'll move on to item 4.1, principal approval of the financial statements, performance statements for the year ending 30th of June 2024. There's two speakers speaking against. Alicia Carey, could you please address the council? You have 2 minutes.
So firstly, Mayor, I'd like to congratulate you on a very long term in council, and I think you have hosted these meetings incredibly well. And you and I have not always seen eye to eye, but what fun is it without the challenge? And I have to say the one good thing, I think you always get my name right. So thank you. So thank you, and congratulations to Councillor De Morales outgoing and Councillor Rick Garotti for being a Deputy Mayor this year. So my comments will really be based on the new incoming council. So I'm just making comment on the performance statement for the year ending 30th of June 2024. So each year council has a report, an independent report that comes back from JWS, which does community satisfaction and a number of targets and record keeping from what the public opinion is on council's activities. And one that keeps coming up is our community consultation. So we're seeing in recent times that the community are finding much more important. So we've had a score in 71 in 2020 and a score of 74 in 2024 of the importance, and this is an index score. So while the importance for the community has gone up, the scorecard has shown that the performance has actually gone down. So on the 3 points that we've gone up in importance, we've gone down in performance. So we've gone from 60 in 2020 down to 57 in 2024. And so I think it's a focus point that the new council could actually take on. And I think we need to acknowledge those where we can do better. And I feel that actually one of those points that we're not doing is acknowledging where we really need to work. So rather than advertising that we're doing better, is really get into the grit of why it isn't a score that where we should be. And when we compare it to the Boroondara score, Boroondara sitting 3 points ahead of us, and I'd really like us to come to do a lot better in the next council term, and I think we can all find innovative ways to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Our second speaker is Pippa Griffiths. Pippa, you're in the gallery there. Welcome. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, and I'd like to echo all the things that have been said today, and tomorrow is the first day of the rest of your life. My points are actually very similar to Alicia's, so I'll probably cut what I'm going to say shorter. My point was that it's also about the consultation and engagement aspect to these reports, and noting that it's a difference of 17 points between the performance index score of 74, which is how important it is to the community, and an actual value of 57, a difference of 17 points. And I find that very disappointing. It's obviously very important to our community, and I believe it deserves to be given more attention and more emphasis. I'm concerned that the report says that the community, that our satisfaction with the community's engagement remains consistent, and feel that that seems a little complacent in view of that 2-point drop. And I'd also like to contrast that with Boroondara again. I had an interesting experience there yesterday. That council held a very well attended meeting informing the community about the Victorian Government changes to planning, and answered a variety of questions from those attending. Their website has a page which provides information on the planning changes, including a section entitled What You Can Do, and it gives links to further information. That meeting was well attended in part because every resident had received a letter with an update and notice of the meeting, and many, if not all those letters, were actually via the mailbox. I may be wrong, but I've been unable to find anything on Banyul's website about the government planning initiatives or housing targets. As these are
Excuse me,
issues...
Pippa, are you talking to the right item? Aren't we talking about the financial statement of performance?
I'm talking about the performance report and the community engagement aspect of the performance report.
Okay, thank you.
And contrasting it with what I observed yesterday.
Would you mind summing up? Your time's up. Thanks.
Okay. Rather than accepting the status quo, which the report appears to do, we could learn a few things from Boroondara and work harder to close that 17-point gap. And I hope that next year I'll be standing here congratulating you on a much improved result.
That would be good. Thank you, Pippa. There is a recommendation looking for a councillor to move. Councillor Grotti, seconded. Councillor Neely, comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We'll make a few brief comments. Really do appreciate the comments and feedback raised by the speakers. And I think it's fair to say that when councillors received a briefing on those results, we were asking similar questions, because we know that over the last 4 years there's been an overall drop in customer satisfaction across all the councils, but there are clearly councils that are doing it better than Banyul, and there are clearly councils that are doing it significantly better in certain areas. And so I think it's remiss as a council and councillors if we're not querying that of our officers, querying that of ourselves as well, and the work that we do to say how can we lift and how we can improve. So I did just want to reflect upon that, to acknowledge and thank those comments, and just to give some confidence back that we've certainly had those conversations as a group and with our executive team at council. And I too look forward to an improvement in the results, whether it be as a councillor or as a community member in 1 year's time. I did just want to touch on the financial statements that we're looking to adopt in principle this evening. And it is a good result for the council and a good result for the community. A $9.8 million surplus, a $33.5 million cash surplus. Debt is down to less than 10% of turnover. When 12 years ago, when I was first elected to this council, debt was over 40% of turnover, and we were in the situation of having to write to the State Treasurer to seek an exemption to borrowing, which would have been very embarrassing for this council to have to do. We leave the council in a strong position for the next council. There's $48.5 million in cash and $30.5 million in liquid assets, in term deposits and VFMC assets. Our defined benefit scheme is fully funded. And again, 12 years ago, I recall coming to this council where one of the first things that we needed to do was find $15 million to top up the fund. So things are in a good position. Things are not perfect. We know that. We know that there's room to improve, and it's not an opportunity to boast, but it is just an opportunity to say that we've done our best as the outgoing council. We think that we leave this council in reasonably good shape, and we wish the next council all the best in taking things forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Neely.
Yeah, I'd like to mention some of the activities as well as the financial performance that the report highlights. Like the usage at libraries, it's really important to track that information. The usage at Watermark, our participation results from engagement surveys, which, as mentioned by one of the speakers, the number of children that attend maternal child health services, the conditions of the roads, the number of planning applications decided, the amount of curbside waste that we have diverted from landfill, as well as loans and borrowing. So the other thing for me was to note the material variations. It highlights the state that the economy is in, a decrease in activity. Income from statutory fees and fines are down. There's a shortfall in operating grants. We're continuously told there's no money. Capital grants are lower. The other one, interestingly, I found that there was more maternity and parental leave taken at council, as well as projects coming in well over budget. And that was a trend that we've seen over the last 4 years, how much more, contracts and things coming 30% higher, that we had to reconsider a lot of decisions, and that's the most challenging thing to do as a councillor. So this report, the best thing about it, very detailed and transparent, and I will support tonight.
Thank you very much. Are there further comments? I'll just say a few words. I appreciate Councillor Garotti's analysis of the financial thing, but I think about the support we've provided to people, which is much more difficult to define in this sort of report. But I look at our hardship policy, which I think is one of the best hardship policy in Melbourne, where we provide up to $550 back for people that are really struggling with their rates. And I look at our inclusive employment program, and there's a report coming up about that and how that has helped so many young people that are facing barriers to employment and provided them with a future. And I think that's something as a council we can be immensely proud of. I think about the social housing project we built in Belfield. It provided 73 people with somewhere to live that were living on the streets or in their cars, and the life-changing impact that has had. And I look at the social enterprises where we've started and supported, and the number of people they have helped. And we think about Chances Cafe in this behind us, and there's so many other social enterprises. So it's good to look at, and we must look at the financial situation, because if you haven't got a sound financial base, you can't do much. But I believe people are more important than money, and I think this council does a great job of supporting the most vulnerable people in our community. And without that money, we can't do that. But how we choose to allocate that money to make sure that every resident of Banyule is looked after, that everyone has an opportunity and everyone has a chance to succeed. And as we've said before, if everyone succeeds to their maximum, then as a community and as a society we'll be so much better off. So I'm very proud of what this council does achieve. I think we are focused on people, but we maintain a healthy balance as well. So I'm very proud of what we have achieved through this budget. So I'll put that, all those in favour. That is carried. We'll move on to Banyul's response to the planning reforms, change to Res Code provision. There are two speakers. Pippa, welcome again. You have 2 minutes this time.
Thank you. I started out being for this recommendation, but as I got deeper into the issue, I changed my mind and I'm actually speaking against the endorsement of this submission. It needs to start with a clear statement that Banyul will not endorse the government's proposed changes without much more wide-ranging consultation and impacts assessment and the retention of third-party appeal rights. This is one of the most important and seriously worrying undemocratic proposals to come to the state government in recent times. It has the potential to radically change our neighbourhoods and not for the better. One of the most worrying things is it smacks of the government being held captive by developers who want to be able to build with few restrictions, riding roughshod over the community by removing any realistic opportunity of us being able to object is not democratic and will lead to poorer outcomes. It would destroy our neighbourhood character, removing any qualitative or aesthetic assessment and assuming instead that neighbourhood character automatically comes from complying with the standards. The uniqueness of our suburbs does not lend itself to standardisation. Very limited consultation has been allowed for. This is a recipe for disaster. There would be lots of unintended consequences because many of the proposed changes are not actually clear enough. They have not been rigorously analysed and subjected to a wide variety of opinions. And to make matters worse, the government is taking away our right to work towards better outcomes. We could object to council, but you would be unable to do anything about it if it met the standards. This is not democracy in any meaningful way. Some of the most worrying details are, firstly, the reduction in setbacks from 9 metres to 6 metres or less, and the increased size of building footprints. This will result in a loss of permeability and make it harder to achieve any realistic level of canopy cover, as well as being out of keeping with the neighbourhood character in many areas. This is meant to create more housing, but instead could mean even larger houses on a block. There could be many more high fences on front boundaries. A 4-storey building could be right next to a single-storey or heritage building, and reduce privacy from being overlooked. 9 metres is not really enough to protect privacy. Reducing that to 6 makes that worse. I could go on, but I'm already over the limit.
Please don't.
So if you include that statement at the start of the submission, it will be much clearer to all involved that this proposal is unacceptable, and I would be very supportive of that.
And thank you, Pippa, and thank you for your many emails, very thought-provoking and well-written English.
Thank you.
I'm not sure. So, and we're missing Jane tonight, so it'd be nice. I know Jane's away, but it would be nice to have Jane here to talk to this as well. Our second speaker is Michelle Jarvis. Welcome, Michelle. She knows. Citizen of the Year, then.
Thank you. You got one thing right. Although I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of Banyul, and although we support officer comments as contained in the attachment, Council's recommendation and submission to the Department of Transport and Planning needs to be much stronger. Council needs to be clear that the exclusion of residents' third-party rights to object to a development that is deemed to comply is undemocratic. Banyul Council needs to make the clear statement that the proposed change to Res Code, are unacceptable, as the changes are an attack on local community and residents' participation and results in even less accountability and transparency. Council needs to clearly state that it does not support the Res Code change provisions that unfairly limits community input by removing third-party appeal rights. Further to this is the whole uncertainty around deemed to comply standards. These changes to Res Code could be particularly detrimental to our leafy green suburbs such as Sherborne Ward, as contained at Sherborne Ward, with significant loss of green space and canopy cover anticipated. These changes will result in the loss of amenity and privacy due to reduced setbacks and lesser overlooking restrictions. This, along with the failure to adequately recognise the unique neighbourhood character, the trees and the less permeability of land available, is a key concern for Sherborne residents. And on another note, Mayor Tom, Friends of Banyule would also like to acknowledge your many years of service.
Just a point of order, please, Mayor. There are other wards in Banyule that are very green and will also be impacted by this, namely Beale Ward and Bakewell Ward as well, not just Sherborne.
And also East Ivanhoe, Eaglemont.
That's Chelsworth, Griffith, so most of Banyule.
Can you continue, please, Michelle?
Rosanna McLeod. But anyway, Tom, just getting away from that, Friends, you've been a great supporter of Friends of Banyule over decades, and it's deeply appreciated. And we want to thank you for your work helping to, or advocating for a better North East link. We've unfortunately still have to keep persisting with that, and just as you have to keep persisting with pronouncing my name correctly, which is Michelle Jovis. And thanks for the point of order. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. There is a motion in the papers, but I believe there's a slight amendment to it. Councillor McKern, would you like to read the amendment, please?
Thank you, Mayor. And the amendment refers to point 3, to write to the Minister for Planning, urging the state government to A, pause proposed planning reforms until meaningful consultation is undertaken with the community and all councils. B, articulate how the proposed planning reforms will protect our suburban streetscapes and encourage the implementation of its cooling and greening policy. And C, demonstrate how the new provisions set standards for good design to maintain and improve the livability of Melbourne's suburbs.
Moved Councillor McKern, seconded Councillor Costello. Comment?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to our speakers. You have stolen my thunder. And that's okay, because it shows just how our community is engaged and on top of these proposed state government planning reforms. They certainly caused me to ask, what is a city but for its people and the ability of its people to inform how their city is developed? While the aim of the reforms purports to free up the planning approval process so as to deliver 800,000 new homes in the next 10 years, we must ask how, as has been alluded to by our speakers, how has this been tested? While a planning permit provides legal permission for development or use of a land, it doesn't mandate construction. A developer cannot be forced to build, and numerous market forces will weigh into a decision. And 2, how have tax-paying citizens of this city been consulted about the proposed changes and consequences? It's been pointed out that some of the proposed reforms will see the loss of neighbourhood character, and that is an enormous loss, particularly given on the back of a neighbourhood character strategy that we've just adopted through extensive consultation for our city. So new developments won't have to consider character of the surrounding area. Loss of livability in our suburbs due loss of livability plus the loosening of other developmental standards that contribute to livability. And these have been spoken to as well. Setbacks, site coverage, overlooking, overshadowing, all affected. The planting of fewer trees will occur due to larger development footprints and removal of private open space requirements. This flies in the face of not only our urban forest strategy vision for more trees in our city, but it goes against the state government's own policy for greening and cooling our streets. And another big conundrum will be the loss of certainty regarding quality of design, especially regarding multi-unit developments, which could result and likely will result in poor design and a cookie-cutter approach reminiscent of the dark ages of the 1960s six-pack apartment blocks with limited regulation and unsympathetic local character. So by that I mean we're going to see a lot more codified ticks-the-box type planning controls and objectors losing appeal rights at VCAT, where developers, however, will still be able to appeal. These losses for our community do represent an outrageous erosion of basic democratic rights and a complete assault on the livability of our city. And it is absolutely vital that we all write to the Minister for Planning and the Premier with our concerns and objections to these proposed planning reforms and how they're being delivered. To that end, given the complexity of the topic, Mayor, I would ask that if, through you, the Director would like to add to this, the Director of City Development, as to what this might mean, anything that I or the speakers have missed, and also how our community might be able to contribute their thoughts and opinions.
Natasha, would you like to respond?
Big question.
Thank you,
She's
through you,
pretty good at
Mayor.
answering.
I guess the officer's submission runs through the technical concerns we have with the provisions as they've been drafted and shared with us. There's perhaps more that we don't know rather than we do know in relation to the process from here. We're certainly not advised or privy to any understanding of timeframes or process that the state government might entertain in introducing these provisions. It's certainly not clear that we've seen a path for consultation, but I guess that doesn't preclude it from happening, but it would appear that that's unlikely. As to the implications, it's really difficult to know until they're adopted in the planning scheme, but I would reiterate the work that we've done through our housing and neighbourhood character strategy sets out a body of work that we intend to implement through the next council as part of planning reforms to our own planning scheme, and we would have to give some serious consideration to revising that work plan and prioritising those actions if the deemed to comply provisions were put in place to those areas most vulnerable to impacts from the change, rather than perhaps a more normal and larger, more omnibus amendment one might do to introduce all the provisions at one time. So those are probably my observations and concerns from the work today.
Can the Director provide any information on how the community might actually have their objections heard? Can they write to the Minister? Does she know if there is actually a process for that available?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. No, we're not aware of any process at this time.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak? Councillor Costello.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a nice item on the agenda before, but this is an absolutely frightening agenda item. These reforms that are being proposed by the state government on the planning scheme. I'd like to thank the officers for turning this around so quickly and drawing our attention and the community's attention to the shortcomings of this proposed change. I think 2 weeks plus 9 days extra did they have to provide this report and recommendation to such a significant change. I'd also like to note the submission and contribution of those in the audience tonight, and Pippa always drawing our attention to important items. It could be considered the death of design, this. Deemed to comply where neighbourhood character is abandoned, setbacks are reduced, large front fences can go up and almost the whole block can be built over and paved up. leaving no space for gardens and decent trees to grow, where compliance is all that matters and its intention is to encourage more buildings to go in easier. This is a dangerous approach to planning for our future and the livability of this beautiful city. And why? Because we're told there's going to be a massive population growth when birth rates are going down. I will note that this new standard, there are some welcomed environmental inclusions around solar, air pollution, solar access and ventilation. But this hasn't gone through a rigorous democratic process to evaluate, does this benefit our community now and into the future? We've spent 3 years working hard, tirelessly, on developing a neighbourhood character strategy. We haven't even been able to implement some of the most important elements of that in the excuse me, it's quite technical, strengthening the zone schedules to introduce neighbourhood character protections. There's a whole lot of work that needs to be done, and there's gaps that this is going to open us up to. I'd like to thank the officers and the director tonight, just touching on some of that, but there's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done, and we don't even know the timelines of this implementation. So it's very, very worrying. The last council meeting we've got the most important and dangerous piece of legislation coming to the character of our entire municipality that I've seen in my time on council, just about when ResCode dictates what the majority of blocks across Banyule can do on them. A single dwelling lot can just about do anything without neighbourhood character, and some of these other controls restricting it. So I think we're going to have to do some significant work now, and until this is goes through the next stages at state government in the parliament. So I'll be definitely advocating for this now, and until this is removed from the agenda of this government. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Champion.
Thanks, Mayor. A couple of weeks ago, one of my Sherborne residents emailed me, very brief email, and she was very angry. And she was angry that she'd be walking around the ward with her dog every day, and she seemed to think that so many houses are coming down, single houses are coming down, or there are subdivisions, more subdivisions going on in Sherborne and other parts of Banyule, and there is a lot of tree loss on private land. And she referred to the concrete backyards of Laylaw and Thomastown. And it was my fault. Now, this item, which has come again to council, is a perfect example of how this is not council's fault. This is the state, ResCode refers to state government planning rules, not local council. Local council is neighbourhood character. These are state government rules, ResCode, for every single site in Banyule. Nillumbik has requirements that are put on it. Every single local council in Victoria has provisions, ResCode provisions on it to increase housing, which is the plan by the state government to increase, create housing for people coming into the state, and it's mostly immigration. Because let me tell you, there are a lot of people who are actually leaving Victoria and going to other states, mostly north, and it's not just because it's warmer. We are losing neighbourhood character. So really simply, if you're getting upset about the lack of space between properties, as our speaker mentioned, if you're getting upset about the cookie cutter approach and the cookie cutter design, that's because we do not have a say anymore about what is being constructed. We will have no neighbourhood character. That's what happens when this goes through. And when you see it and you get upset and you write to us, we are really sorry. We're not going to be able to do anything about it because our hands are tied. We do not have a voice anymore. And that is what this is doing to every single council in Victoria. And that is why we were working hard to object to it. Thank you. That's my rant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further comment, Councillor Grotty?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and just wanted to thank earlier speakers from Council, including Councillor McKern, Councillor Castaldo, Champion. Look, these are reforms, and from what I understand, that they will require legislative changes in order to be enacted. So that's a good thing. It means that it has to pass through the upper house, and it means, based on the current parliament, that other parties have to be involved in that process. The Greens, the Liberal Party, potentially others in the upper house. I think this is a really good first step, that we sit down with the government, the Minister for Planning, and I encourage all the other councils to be doing the same. I'd be encouraging a new council to open up a dialogue with our local state MPs and having a discussion and conversation with them. But I think that this will be a process, and I think that as a council and as a sector, we need to be advocating hard, and we need to keep in mind that it will require its legislation. So it will require passage through the upper house, and that means that potentially we should be looking to engage more broadly across the spectrum there. I won't engage further on what the comments of colleagues made, but to take away a person's right to object is highly concerning. And not only from a planning sense, but potentially what does that mean further down the track on other processes of government. So I think it's really important that we try and hold the line here. But first step, let's engage with state government. Let's be positive, proactive, and I'm sure a new council will have to evolve the conversation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? Sorry, Councillor De Pasquale.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a few comments. I think from my perspective, it is very, very concerning with regards to what this could potentially turn out to be in the future. We were once considered the Garden State. It was all over our number plates many, many years ago. We had implemented into our planning scheme Banyule neighbourhood character, which really did guide people how to build form, what we wanted our suburbs to look like, what we wanted the shape and form of homes and buildings to look like. And for that to be thrown out, it just will fly in the face of why many people came out here to live in the first place. Most people you ask, why do you live in Banyule? Oh, I love it. I love the design, I love the people, I love the trees, I love the rivers, I love Banyule. So it's the Banyule planning scheme is all part of that. For that to be thrown out and for people not to be able to object to that is going to be a very different Banyule. It's going to be a very different Melbourne. Throw on top of that the build of the North East Link, M80, all this infrastructure that we have. The state government are pretty much setting up that we're going to have a population explosion to facilitate it all, to pay for it all, to go that next step, and that's what they're planning. So I don't think there's a councillor on this table here tonight who would be thinking differently, that we would all be pretty much in lockstep with officers, community members, etc., that this needs to be picked apart with a fine-tooth comb, and the community need to understand what this is all about too, because if you ask the general mum or the dad out there, they don't understand planning. They don't know the process until you go through the process. You don't know planning unless you've gone through and tried to develop your block or tried to do something. Other than that, all you hear is planning takes too long, they're terrible at doing it. And yeah, this is very, very concerning. I don't know what to do now. Doing the submission is appropriate, but the new council needs to really, dig their teeth into this and right from the very get-go. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll just make a few comments. As Councillor McKern commented about the old 60s walk-ups, as they used to call them, and the disruption that caused and the legacy that they left was... and that was the last time when we had this as a right type of exercise where if you met a certain criteria you could build these things. Didn't matter about neighbourhood character. And we went away from that because we realised the destruction that they were, and how they didn't blend in. So we went away from that. Now we seem to be going back to it. But I believe we can get the density we need without destroying our neighbourhood character, without destroying the vegetation, and without destroying the livability. But we don't need to be frightened about density either, because density in the right places gives us choices, it gives us activities, and it makes a more vibrant activity centre. So if we get it right, I believe we could do it. And taking people's right to appeal away, and I remember when I first came on council, I went to a training course on, and all I remember from that 3-day training course was, if people have the opportunity to object, their objection changes something and it makes it a better development. They may not be happy, but they won't be angry. By removing their rights, people will be angry. And also, a lot of the time people are asking for changes. They're small changes that will make a difference to their livability and their security and the issues that they're concerned about, without actually impacting on the capacity of within the building. So, and the other thing I always think about, these buildings are going to be there for 60 or 70 years. If it takes a little bit longer to get the planning right, surely that's not a big ask. And what is the rush to get, and as we know, there's plenty of buildings planned. I look at the triangle site over here, I've seen 3 applications come and they're all been approved by this council and it's never been built. So planning's not the problem. So I think we need to think about this. But I'd also like to thank the staff, because they've put an enormous amount of time into this submission, and it's been an excellent submission. It's guided us and our response, and I'd also like to thank the residents for their input, because it's certainly a lot of in-depth knowledge in our community. So yeah, I am also very concerned about this as well. So I'll put that, all those in favour? That is carried. Now we'll move on to item 8.1, the Inclusive Employment Program, 2023 end of program achievements. There is no speakers. I'll look for a councillor to move. Move Councillor Champion, seconded Councillor Neely. Comment?
Thank you. I think I spoke to this item either earlier this year or the end of last year's cohort. I'm not sure, but I made the point about the joy someone has when they realise they have a job. And they have a job after an application that has been after hundreds of applications to hundreds of positions that have been advertised, and they finally get the achievement of being given a job. When can you start? Can you start Monday? How about next week? Congratulations, you've got a role. And as a parent of a young person who gets a job, that is also an achievement and a relief. And that's something that this program allows for, helps, contributes to someone's life. I think we're into the 6th year. I think this has been the 6th Inclusive Employment Program. We're moving into our 7th next year, and this is the 6th time that I have been able to hand out certificates, which is a privilege for me to do. And it has been the 6th time that I have, and some of us councillors have actually been able to sit in on an information session and come and meet the participants. And they are all so excited. They are so excited to be part of this because they have hope. And many of them do receive work out of this. They do get work somewhere, somehow. So I know this is not my idea. This is a brainchild of one of Councillor Rick Garotti's residents. I'll let him explain it. It's a great story, and this is a great program. And in my background, my second career was in vocational education and training. So I actually got to contribute to people's lives in the vocational sector, whether they were adults or whether they were teenagers or youth. I actually got to contribute to their skills and knowledge so that they could be employable. So this is just an extension of that. So this was a beautiful evening, and we could congratulate so many people on achieving work and better skills and better knowledge to be able to get work, and it was one of the proudest moments of their lives and this council. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment, Councillor Neeling?
Thank you, Mayor. This program addresses barriers to employment that some of our local residents experience. There's a 6-month paid job opportunity, and since 2018, 83% of the participants have moved forward. So whether that's with further employment or it could have been to move on to further education. And that's a wonderful improvement. It's a multifaceted approach to address these systemic issues, and Banyule has provided a really safe space for people and opportunity for those that are struggling with employment. And really, the statistics or the facts show that it does amplify and increase their chance of success. You know, overall, we want the Banyule community to be skilled, informed, connected, and really, if everyone's thriving, we're all in a better community that supports each other. So I'd like to also mention the First Nations trainees. They began in July this year. There were 3, so that's amazing. There's also improvements being made to the workshops themselves to, improve the quality and maybe the specificity delivered to the trainees. So I just think it really is excellent work done by the officers. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Garotti?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Given that Councillor Champion mentioned that I'd touch on the background, I feel I have to, but it was, and I've said it that many times, but I think it is worth recounting that I suppose many moons ago, it was a door that I knocked on, and it was parents who had a disabled child, and they said, look, the council's doing a good job, but if there's one thing that it could do, it would be terrific if it could have a program to provide an opportunity for someone like my child. I took that away, and I said, you know what, I'm going to have a crack at that. And we took a notice of motion up to this council, and we got it funded through the budget, and we've expanded and built upon it every year since. And I think that's a powerful story, because I think it shows that you can interact with a member of the community, you can legitimately hear what they're saying, you can bring an idea to this council, and we can make things happen. And this is by far and away, in my view, the biggest achievement that I've seen recorded by the council in my time here. We often talk about the hard infrastructure that we built, and we talked a lot about the financial results as well tonight, but it's the ability to transform lives through this program that is so powerful. But one thing I want to highlight is that we talk about what a great benefit and gift it is to the job seekers, and they're people with disabilities and from the Indigenous community, disadvantaged backgrounds. There's an intersectionality approach. But ultimately, we as a council and we as a community, I can tell you, we benefit far and away much more than the individuals that come and join us and work for us. We're the ones that benefit. We as a council, we as a community, because the work and output is second to none. 90 to 95% of our job seekers go on to ongoing roles within our council or other organisations. We're now seeing people who started the program 4 or 5 years ago assuming leadership roles within Banyule. We get so much more than what we've put in. So as much as it's a program to be proud of and that it's empowering people and giving people with disability in particular a go, the reality is that we're the real winners as a council, and we're the real winners as a community. And all I can say is that, and I know our CEO is passionate about this, for other councils to open their eyes and get on board and realise what a powerful benefit it can be for you and your communities. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Castaldo.
Yeah, lots been said, so I'll keep it short. But look, no one should be left behind. If the council doesn't pick up and make sure that everyone is included in our community, who's going to do it? So I think it's essential that we do this. Not everyone starts at the same point in life. Not everyone has everything that everyone else has. Everyone's got a family member, if not themselves, that have challenges that makes it difficult or different to everyone else's experience. It's our job to make sure that we assist in this space and bring everyone with us, because when everyone's with us, we can achieve so much more. I think I'll just touch on further a bit what Councillor Garotti mentioned then. We'll be much richer when more organisations take on this responsibility, and it's our role to assist them to do that. So we are doing that. So I think this is a good reminder for us whenever it comes to council of who we serve and who we need to work for in our community.
Thank you. I'll just make a few notes. I was at the function. It was fantastic to see all the young people there and the life-changing events and the life-changing impact it's had, but also to see their families there. You know, it was a wonderful night. But what really impressed me was the room was full of staff, and this was in the evening, so it's staff members there outside work hours, not being paid, but because they're so committed and so appreciative of the opportunity. And I remember talking to when this first started how staff felt that more pride in their work, and they woke up saying, well, I've got to go to work today because I've got this person from the Inclusive Employment Program and they're depending upon me to be at work to help them through the first part of this course or the first part of their assignments. And the mentors that work with these people just to provide them, help them and understand how a working environment is, and like the pride the staff get out of being part of this is just unbelievable. And Councillor Gray talked about the benefits we receive from the people we employ, but the benefits the other staff receive in having pride and working for an organisation that does this is immense. And I note that we did receive we were second in a national award for this program, and other councils are looking at it, and we've packaged it up and explained to them how to do it. But I'd also like to thank Jane and Mohammed who run this, who are just beautiful people. Beautiful, caring people who their enthusiasm and their lust for life is infectious and just brings joy every time they come into a room. So very happy to support this tonight, and yeah, great initiative and something this council can look back and be proud of. So I'll put that, all those in favour. That is carried. And we move on to general items of business. There any item, Councillor Champion, you had a general item?
Thank you, Mayor. I have two this evening. One is that the Lower Plenty Scout Group held their annual reporting and presentation evening last Monday night, and I was privileged to be invited again this year. All group levels presented their activities that they participated in and learned in the last 12 months and showed how active and enthusiastic this particular Scout group is. Congratulations goes to two leaders who received one each of the highest awards in Scouts. One of them was a Wood Badge Award and the other the Australian Scout Award. So many congratulations to those two leaders, and the future of this group is actually very exciting. There is an announcement coming, and I am looking forward to hearing about its growth and successes over the coming years, regardless of whether I'm a councillor or not, because I live there. Onward and upward. And then on a sad note, Alan Robertson, the former principal of Montmorency Secondary College, unfortunately passed away last Monday morning. Yeah. So Alan was an experienced and passionate English teacher who committed 50 years of his life to government education. He was recognised by the Department of Education for his services in 2019. His career started at Broadmeadows Secondary College in 1973, and Alan worked with some of the most disadvantaged students, and he watched them grow and succeed. Alan was a skilled basketball player, and he valued the positive impact that sport could have on students. And he founded the Broady Tech Basketball Club. And it was through this commitment to education and the love of basketball that he made a significant positive difference to so many young people. Alan continued his career at Craigieburn Secondary College before he joined the Montmorency Secondary College in 1993. So it was here that he grew his career and further love of basketball, and it flourished. Coaching teams and students, teaching English, followed that up with the assistant principal role and eventually the principal in 2011. Alan committed his life to public education and was a huge advocate for the college. He recognised that his students deserved the best facilities to learn in and to play in, and he was a critical partner with council and with the construction of the new stadium, which is to state competition standards. I had the privilege of being a parent of the school during the last years of his role as principal. He was always welcoming and approachable. He was always respectful, and he cared for the welfare of the students. He invested in the improvement of the school in both numbers and standards. Montmorency Secondary College's leadership program became well known and regarded under his leadership. In 2024, he was awarded an Order of Australia Medal on the Australia Day Honours List. And we, as council, we extend our heartfelt condolences to his wife, Pam, and his children. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further general items of business? Councillor Garotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Given that Councillor Champion mentioned the Lowell Plenty Scouts ARUP, and we have the President of the Bundoora Scouts here in the gallery, I did attend that event, the ARUP. Terrific event, terrific night, and I'm reliably informed that Bundoora Scouts is now third biggest in the city, so keep up the great work, Bundoora Scouts.
Thank you. Any further items, Councillor McKeon?
Given that it's an evening of thank yous and gratitude, Mayor, I just thought that I would extend some acknowledgements to the Urban Food Strategy Working Party and the Banyule Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee. Last week I was privileged to chair the last meetings for this council term of those particular committee and working party, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank all the community members who've participated on in those forums, and council staff for their contributions to what has been very fruitful and enjoyable meetings in this term. And I wish to extend, I suppose, good luck and all the best to both, because I know that there's exciting things happening in both the environment, climate action and urban food areas in the pipeline for this council leading into the next term. So all the best to them, and thank you for the opportunity to chair those meetings. It's been an honour.
Thank you. Further general items? Councillor Castaldo.
I've got two. First, Banyule Youth Festival, our premier youth event, was held yesterday on the Sunday the 16th of September at McLeod Park. Youth Fest is one of our signature community events designed by young people for young people. This year the weather was kind to us, fortunately, on the Sunday, and we had more than 6,500 people attend the event. There was a terrific lineup of music, live music and performances on the two stages from local acts, and all of the performances were fantastic. Very diverse and interesting for all that were there. We had amazing talent, and it's really wonderful to see it exhibited the way it was. A very big thank you to all our inspirational youth here in Banyule for supporting such a terrific event. It grows bigger each year. A very big thanks goes to the fabulous Banyule Youth Service team. I think they were very proud of the event that they put on, and they've always got wonderful smiling faces. They've got a wonderful job raising such a wonderful organisation and part of council. I'll just acknowledge, I think, Councillor Champion, myself, Councillor Malikan and Councillor Garotti were in attendance. It was good to see so many of you there. And on another item, Wednesday the 11th of September, we had our last Reconciliation Committee meeting with our First Nations community. I'd like to acknowledge my fellow councillor, Councillor Neely, and all of those on the committee that played a tremendous role in moving our First Nations community forward over the last 4 years. There's been lots of ups and downs, and it's been a significant journey, but what I must say is that we have a tremendous group of leaders in that community that represent their community really well and inform us on all of the key priorities of that community. And once, like I said before, that we shouldn't leave any at-risk community behind. This is one that we've got a tremendous group moving forward with, and I'm tremendously proud of their contributions to our city.
Thank you. I do note I unfortunately got there just as the meal was being served, so I didn't miss their meeting, but I did get the meal, so that was good. So
I didn't know if I should mention that.
Well, I was waiting for it. I also have a bit of a sad general item. Hector Davis, OAM, passed away aged 98 with his family by his side. He was a City of Heidelberg councillor from 1978 to 1993, during which time he was mayor 3 times. Awarded the OAM in January 1987 for recognition to the community, particularly for children and youth. I had the opportunity to visit him about a month before he died, and he was super keen and very, very interested in all things council still. He asked so many questions, and it was a pleasure to spend time with someone who was just so involved and so enthusiastic about life. But I also attended his funeral, and it was a beautiful celebration. And there's people in the gallery that also attended his funeral. It was a beautiful celebration, and I learned a lot about Hector at the funeral. His incredibly difficult childhood, being one of 13 children of an alcoholic father, growing up in Richmond during the Depression, and his family, his life was just appalling to think what happened to him as a young man. And at the age of 14 he started work and got a position in a company where he worked his way up to be a very senior position. He then started his own businesses and purchased several different companies and became an incredibly successful businessman, but it didn't change him at all. He never forgot his childhood, and he spent the rest of his life ensuring young people and children have a better start to life than he did. And some of the stories people told at this funeral was quite amazing. He was a huge supporter of the Heidelberg Football Club, but no one gets it totally right. Sorry about that. But he was also a massive member of the Rosanna Uniting Church, and such a wonderful man. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. He never stopped working for his community, and he's one of the giants of this city. And when we talk about how good we are, but it's because of people like Hector that this is a great city. He will be sadly missed, and our thoughts go out to his 3 children and his entire extended family. A wonderful man, Hector. So with that, we'll move on to public questions. So we have 5 tonight. The first one is Caroline Malkin. Welcome, Caroline. Thanks for coming in. Sorry to take so long, but hope you enjoyed it.
Well, I have. I actually regret not having attended a council meeting before. Can you believe that? My question is about the North East Link parking on Finlayson Street in Rosanna. So I welcome Council's introduction of a permit parking scheme and restrictions to deter workers from the North East Link project, parking 24/7 in Finlayson Street, the Greensboro Road end. However, rather than residents incurring the cost for the scheme and second and subsequent residential and visitor permits, it seems fairer that the North East Link project pay for this scheme, given that it is their inability to influence their staff and contractors to obey their signs requesting no project parking. Residents have not created this problem, they just suffer from it. So it seems greatly unfair that they also have to bear the cost of addressing the problem.
Thank you for the question. There is a response, Councillor Natasha. Sorry.
Director Swan. Yeah. We agree that any costs directly linked to the North East Link project shouldn't be borne by either residents or council. The operation of a parking permit system does have an administrative cost to council. We do offer the first residential permit free of charge and a discounted visitors permit to residents holding a concession card or a disabled parking permit. We do suggest residents contact NELP for a discussion about parking permit fees and how the project is affecting them.
Thank you, Natasha. Our second question is Christina Murray. Welcome, Christina.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors and the gallery. Well, congratulations on all of your achievements in your term and for being an inclusive and empowering council. Now to my question. Council has recently attached electronic tags to our rubbish bins, to all waste, recycling and the green waste bins. It's understood that these tags contain personal data from the households, including names, addresses and serial numbers of the bins. The community would like to know what personal information is included on the electronic tags. Are you going to consider fines if residents contaminate the recycling or the green waste bins? And if so, what will be the fine, the amount? Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. There is a response. Darren Bennett, would you like to respond on behalf of
Yes, thank you for the question. The electronic serial numbers fitted to the bins do not contain any personal or sensitive data. The electronic serial number is transmitted to a reader when activated by a radio wave of a particular frequency, and the transmitter and reader must be in close proximity to each other. Contamination is managed in accordance with Council's curbside contamination policy. The policy outlines a 6-step engagement process that Council must implement with tenants and property owners before Council may implement a contaminated waste service. The curbside contamination policy contains no provision for fines, only charges for services provided to the household. It allows for the provision of a contaminated curbside service to a household which cannot address contamination. A contaminated waste service is an additional $1,765 per annum cost to the property owner.
Thank you. Our third question is from Pippa Griffiths. Welcome again, Pippa.
Is Council intending early next year to consider a budget allocation to the Darebin Creek Management Committee for the 25-26 financial year to ensure their funding continues without a break, even though the resolution of 30th of October 2023 states the review is only due by December 25, therefore avoiding a detrimental disruption in the funding of the Darebin Creek Management Committee if Council has not reconciled the report timing to the budget timing?
Thank you. Darren, would you like to respond again?
Yes, thanks for the question. Officers will present a report to Council before the end of 2024, recommending that Council consider extending the current funding commitment by an additional 12 months through to until June 2026. This extension aims to provide the DCMC with the necessary certainty while the Council continues its review process.
Thank you, Pippa. Good question and very good answer. Our fourth question is Wendy Pallister. Welcome, Wendy.
It's on. Good evening, everyone, and wish you all the best in your break. And of course, it's about James Reserve. So I advocate for James Reserve to conserve areas of significance where appropriate. This council, and I know it's the end of it, but would have us believe that spending huge amounts of money on lights and irrigation on James Reserve, sectioning the park off to the far northeast boundary, downgrading the open space to a C-grade sports ground, and with this spend does not uphold the standards of the game or promote safety and fair play on the soccer field, as per sports requirements. This was seen when you put the lights up back in 2022.
Mayor, sorry, is there a question in there?
Yes,
from the
there is,
speaker?
but I'm giving
Thank you.
background. So this was seen when the lights went up and the night games were cancelled abruptly back in 2022, and the number of games that have been played there since. So what is Council's objective here? Lights serve the purpose to relegate the park area to the far north corner, and the irrigation has not proved to make the ground playable, and now can be seen as a utility ground. So what is the history of council? Selling off Hague Street Primary School?
Wendy, can you ask your question, please?
I'm getting there. Selling off Hague Street Primary School with amalgamated with Heidelberg?
Wendy, your question is about James Reserve.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Hague
So my
Street
question was a permit granted as required by the planning Victorian planning scheme 36.02 and the below, when building or constructing or carrying out works of sporting equipment that occupy more than 10 square metres of parkland, such as on James Reserve, PPRZ. So was a permit granted or by the land manager given approval?
So we have a response to that question. Natasha, could you read that response?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Council did not require planning permission for the installation of lights at James Reserve. Council is the public land manager of this reserve, and under clause 3602-2, permit requirements, it specifies that as we are the public land manager, no planning permit is required for any works we undertake.
Thank you. And our final question is Warren Sanders. Welcome again, Lauren.
Thank you. And just before my question, I'd just like to thank on behalf, as a resident of Banyule, thank you and congratulate you all on your 4 years as councillors. Your hard work, although sometimes criticised by us, it doesn't go unnoticed and is for the greater good of the community. So thank you all. My question is, noting recently Sherborne Road speed limit in Bry Hill has been lowered from 60 kilometres to 50 k per hour. What is, if at all, the minimum standard of community consultation from council prior to adjusting the speed limits on roads within the municipality? Thank you.
Thank you. Natasha, you have a response, please?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. In this case, Council received a petition with 100 signatories at its meeting of the 20th of March 2023 in relation to Sherborne Road, and the petition requested Council reduce the speed limit to 50 kilometres an hour. A review of the road was undertaken by Council's Traffic and Transport team, and it was determined that as per the state's speed zoning guidelines, that the speed of this local road should be 50 kilometres an hour. As this change was in response to road safety issues, and we're required to implement this as part of our road management functions, no consultation was undertaken and the community were rather informed of the change.
Thank you. That brings to the conclusion the public questions. So that brings us to the end of the meeting. There are no confidential items tonight. We finished the meeting at 9:22. Thank you for your attendance. Thanks to staff for their work, and good night, everybody. Thanks, Rick.